Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Merry Mitch stream. um, Hope everybody's doing well. And yeah, we are here once again to continue the story and see how it all unfolds. Let's see. My day was pretty darn good. I woke up. I had a breakfast of champions. I took it easy a little bit. Went for a heck of a run yesterday, so it left me a little more worn out than I had anticipated. Yeah, I spent a little bit of time on D&D prep, and then soon enough I was off to work. I work as a coach at a gymnasium, and man, it was a fun time. I'm down to only coaching once a week, so yeah, getting the chance to get in there and do something I'm passionate about. Oh yeah, it was a good time. Now let's see. Straight into it. Last time, on the Mark of Athena, we saw our heroes run into quite the issue. Piper had been having these visions that she saw within her blade, Catoptris. She saw visions of herself, Percy, and Jason drowning in a well that's top was capped. So the top was sealed, and she's had visions of the water rising and all three of them drowning. Unclear what that means. There's another vision that she saw right next to a sign that said Topeka 32, where Bacchus, the god of wine and merriment, I think, or maritime, was there to offer a silver goblet. So they figured, hey, before we head off across the Atlantic, we need supplies and to stop somewhere. So they figured the best place to drop down would be to maybe investigate Piper's visions. See if Topeka really did have something in store for them. So Piper and Percy and Jason, the three of them, went off to the location that Piper saw. And lo and behold, guess who showed up? None other than Bacchus. He appeared out of the wheat field and talked with them a little bit. It seemed as though he wasn't too keen on Percy referring to him as Dionysus, his Greek counterpart, but he was still willing to give them some information, but no silver goblet. He was there coincidentally, meaning to meet someone else. And Ceres, the one he was meant to meet, wasn't showing up. And soon enough, he thought, wait a second, Ceres isn't usually late. This is a trap. And lo and behold, a trap it was. Bacchus pieced the heck out of there, and left our heroes to be ambushed by Gaia and some sort of spirit that was aiding her. I believe it was called an Eidolon. Let me see if I was correct, though. we'll go with Eidolon for now. Ah, yes, I was correct. Cool. Just wanted to confirm that. And Eidolon was helping to take control of the minds of both Jason and Percy, pitting the two of them against each other, and Gaia whispers to Piper saying, "You, along with one of them, must die here. I need the blood of a female demigod and a male one, but it could be either." So, in order to force this choice to happen, Gaia had the Eidolon take control of Percy and Jason and have them fight to the death. Thankfully, through Piper's charm speak and a little bit of assistance from a well-known Onyx Pegasus, the two of them were stopped before either of them were killed. And after getting them back on the ship and healed up, there was some deliberation as to what to do next. Bacchus had suggested to them that they go to Atlanta in order to seek one of Gaia's sons, Forces, I believe it was. Either Forces or Forces. One of the two. But this is a son of Gaia that is not loyal to Gaia, and could be a great aid to these demigods in the coming chapters. So off they fly to Atlanta, and let's see how that all unfolds. Who would have won? Oh man. Between Percy and Jason. I gotta say, I would root for Percy. I think he's got the quick wits. Jason probably has the raw power with the ability to summon lightning. But Percy has a lot of battle experience and, you know, a good mind on him. Well, as I said, Jason does have the raw power. Also, what's up, Ava? Welcome. I hope your night's going smooth. Alright, without further ado, let's jump into tonight's reading. Everybody, sit back, relax, and enjoy this bedtime story. This is The Mark of Athena by Rick Riordan. Chapter 12, Piper. Piper couldn't explain how she knew. Stories of phantoms and tortured souls had always freaked her out. Her dad used to joke about Grandpa Tom's Cherokee legends from back on the res, but even at home in their big Malibu mansion, looking out over the Pacific, whenever her dad recounted the ghost stories for her, she could never get them out of her head. Cherokee spirits were always restless. They often lost their way to the land of the dead, or stayed behind with the living out of sheer stubbornness. They didn't even realize, sometimes, they didn't even realize they were dead. The more Piper learned about being a demigod, the more convinced she was that Cherokee legends and Greek myths weren't so different. These eidolons acted a lot like the spirits in her dad's stories. Piper had a gut sense they were still present, simply because no one had told them to go away. When she was done explaining, the others looked at her uncomfortably. Up on deck, Hedge sang something that sounded like "In the Navy," while Blackjack stomped his hooves, whinnying in protest. Finally, Hazel exhaled.
Piper is right. How can you be sure?
Annabeth asked.
I've met eidolons,
Hazel said.
in the underworld. When I was...
dead. Piper had forgotten that Hazel was a second-timer. In her own way, Hazel too was a ghost reborn. So, Frank rubbed his hand across his buzz-cut hair, as if some ghosts might have invaded his scalp. You think these things are lurking on the ship, or,
Probably lurking inside some of us,
Piper said.
We don't know.
Jason clenched his fist. If that's true,
We have to take steps,
Piper said.
I think I can do this.
Do what? Percy asked.
Just listen, okay?
Piper took a deep breath.
Everybody, listen.
Piper met their eyes, one person at a time.
Eidolons,
she said, using her charm speak.
Raise your hands.
There was tense silence. Leo laughed nervously. Did you really think that was going to... His voice died. His face went slack. He raised his hand. Jason and Percy did the same. Their eyes had turned glassy and gold. Hazel caught her breath. Next to Leo, Frank scrambled out of his chair and put his back against the wall.
Oh, gods.
And Beth looked at Piper imploringly.
Can you cure them?
Piper wanted to whimper and hide under the table, but she had to help Jason. She couldn't believe she held hands with... No. She refused to think about it. She focused on Leo because he was the least intimidating.
Are there more of you on this ship?
She asked. No, Leo said in a hollow voice. The Earth Mother sent 3. The strongest, the best. We will live again.
Not here. Not here you won't.
Piper growled.
All 3 of you, listen carefully.
Jason and Percy turned toward her. Those gold eyes were unnerving, but seeing all 3 boys like that fueled Piper's anger.
You will leave those bodies,
she commanded. No, Percy said. Leo let out a soft hiss. We must live. Frank fumbled for his bow.
Mars Almighty, that's creepy. Get out of here, spirits. Leave our friends alone.
Leo turned towards him. You cannot command us, child of war.
Your own life is fragile. Your soul could burn at any moment. Piper wasn't sure what that meant, but Frank staggered like he'd been punched in the gut. He drew an arrow, his hands shaking.
Sorry, I was changing the music. Hold up. Alright, sorry for the wait. Piper wasn't sure what that meant, but Frank staggered like he'd been punched in the gut. He drew an arrow, his hands shaking.
I faced worse things than you. If you want to fight...
Frank, don't.
Hazel rose. Next to her, Jason drew his sword.
Stop!
Piper ordered, but her voice quavered. She was rapidly losing faith in her plan. She'd made the Eidolons appear, but what now? If she couldn't persuade them to leave, any bloodshed would be her fault. In the back of her mind, she could almost hear Gaia laughing.
Listen to Piper.
Hazel pointed at Jason's sword. The gold blade seemed to grow heavy in his hands. It clunked to the table, and Jason sank back into his chair. Percy growled in a very un-Percy-like way.
Daughter of Pluto, you may control gems and metals. You do not control the dead.
Annabeth reached toward him as if to restrain him, but Hazel waved her off.
Listen, Eidolons,
Hazel said sternly.
you do not belong here. I may not command you, but Piper does. Obey her.
She turned toward Piper, her expression clear. Try again. You can do this. Piper mustered all her courage. She looked straight at Jason, straight into the eyes of the thing that was controlling him.
You will leave those bodies,
Piper repeated, even more forcefully. Jason's face tightened, his forehead beaded with sweat.
We will leave these bodies. You will vow on the river Styx never to return to this ship,
Piper continued,
and never to possess any member of this crew.
Leo and Percy both hissed in protest.
You will promise on the river Styx,
Piper insisted. A moment of tension. She could feel their wills fighting against hers. Then, all three Eidolons spoke in unison.
We promise on the river Styx. You are dead. We are dead, they agreed. Now, leave. All three boys slumped forward. Percy fell face first into his pizza. Percy! Annabeth grabbed him. Piper and Hazel caught Jason's arms as he slipped out of his chair. Leo wasn't so lucky. He fell toward Frank, who made no attempt to intercept him. Leo hit the floor. Ow! Ow! Ooh! Ow! He groaned. Are you alright? Hazel asked. Leo pulled himself up. He had a piece of spaghetti in the shape of a 3 stuck to his forehead. Did it work? It worked, Piper said, feeling pretty sure she was right. I don't think they'll be back. Jason blinked. Does that mean I can stop getting head injuries now? Piper laughed, exhaling all her nervousness. Come on, Lightning Boy. Let's get you some fresh air. Piper and Jason walked back and forth along the deck. Jason was still wobbly, so Piper encouraged him to wrap his arm around her for support. Leo stood at the helm, conferring with Festus through the intercom. He knew from experience to give Jason and Piper some space. Since the satellite TV was up again, Coach Hedge was in his cabin, happily catching up on his mixed martial arts cage matches. Percy's Pegasus, Blackjack, had flown off somewhere. The other demigods were settling in for the night. The Argo II raced east, cruising several hundred feet above the ground. Below them, small towns passed by, like lit-up islands in a dark sea of prairie. Piper remembered last winter, flying Festus the Dragon over the city of Quebec. She had never seen anything so beautiful, or felt so happy to have Jason's arm around her. But this was even better. The night was warm. The ship sailed along more smoothly than a dragon. Best of all, they were flying away from Camp Jupiter as fast as they possibly could. No matter how dangerous the ancient lands were, Piper couldn't wait to get there. She hoped Jason was right, that the Romans wouldn't follow them across the Atlantic. Jason stopped amidship and leant against the rail. The moonlight turned his blonde hair silver. Thanks, Pipes, he said. You saved me again. He put his arm around her waist. She thought about the day they'd fallen into the Grand Canyon. The first time she'd learned that Jason could control the air. He'd held her so tightly, she could feel his heartbeat. Then they'd stopped falling and floated in midair. Best boyfriend ever. She wanted to kiss him now, but something held her back. I don't know if Percy will trust me anymore, she said. Not after I let his horse knock him out. Jason laughed. Don't worry about that. Percy is a nice guy. But I get the feeling he needs a knock on the head every once in a while. You could have killed him. Jason's smile faded. That wasn't me. But I almost let you, Piper said. when Gaia said I had to choose, I hesitated and... She blinked, cursing herself for crying.
Don't be so hard on yourself, Jason said. You saved us both.
But if two of our crew really have to die, a boy and a girl,
I don't accept that. We're going to stop Gaia. All 7 of us are going to come back alive. I promise you. Piper wished that he hadn't promised. The word only reminded her of the prophecy of 7. An oath to keep with a final breath. Please, she thought, wondering if her mom, the goddess of love, could hear her.
Don't let it be Jason's final breath. If love means anything, don't take him away.
As soon as she had made the wish, she felt guilty. How could she stand to see Annabeth in that kind of pain if Percy died? How could she live with herself if any of the 7 demigods died? Already, each of them had endured so much. Even the 2 new Roman kids, Hazel and Frank, who Piper barely knew, felt like kin. At Camp Jupiter, Percy had recounted their trip to Alaska, which sounded as harrowing as anything Piper had experienced. And from the way Hazel and Frank tried to help during the exorcism, she could tell they were brave, good people.
The legend that Annabeth mentioned, she said, about the mark of Athena. Why didn't you want to talk about it?
She was afraid Jason might shut her out. But he just lowered his head, like he'd been expecting the question. Pipes, I don't know what's true and what's not. That legend, it could be really dangerous.
For who?
All of us, he said grimly. The story goes that the Romans stole something important from the Greeks, back in ancient times, when the Romans conquered the Greek cities. Piper waited, but Jason seemed lost in thought.
What did they steal?
She asked. I don't know, he said. I'm not sure anyone in the Legion has ever known. But according to the story, this thing was taken away to Rome and hidden there. The children of Athena, Greek demigods, have hated us ever since. They've always stirred up their brethren against the Romans. Like I said, I don't know how much of that is true.
But why not just tell Annabeth?
Piper asked.
She's not going to suddenly hate you.
He seemed to have trouble focusing on her. I hope not. But the legend says that the children of Athena have been searching for this thing for millennia. Every generation, a few are chosen by the goddess to find it. Apparently, they're led to Rome by some sign. The mark of Athena.
If Annabeth is one of those searchers, we should help her.
Jason hesitated. Maybe. When we get closer to Rome, I'll tell her what little I know. Honest. But the story, at least the way I heard it, it claims that
If the Greeks ever found what was stolen, they'd never forgive us. They'd destroy the Legion of Rome once and for all. After what Nemesis told Leo about Rome's being destroyed 5 days from now, Piper studied Jason's face. He was, without a doubt, the bravest person she'd ever known. But she realized he was afraid. This legend, the idea that it might tear apart their group and level a city, absolutely terrified him. Piper wondered what could have been stolen from the Greeks that would be so important. She couldn't imagine anything that would make Annabeth suddenly turn vengeful. Then again, Piper couldn't imagine choosing one demigod's life over another. And today, on that deserted road, just for a moment, Gaia had almost tempted her. "I'm sorry, by the way," Jason said. Piper wiped the last tear from her face. Sorry for what? It was the Eidolon who attacked. Not about that. The little scar on Jason's upper lip seemed to glow white in the moonlight. She'd always loved that scar. The imperfection made his face much more interesting. "I was stupid to ask you to contact Reyna," he said. "I was thinking... Well, I wasn't thinking." "Oh." Piper looked up at the clouds and wondered if her mother, Aphrodite, was somehow influencing her. Or influencing him. His apologies seemed too good to be true. "But don't stop," she thought. "Really, it's okay. It's just... I never felt that way toward Reyna," Jason said. "So I didn't think about it's making you uncomfortable. You've got nothing to worry about, Pipes." "I wanted to hate her," Piper admitted. "I was so afraid you'd go back to Camp Jupiter." Jason looked surprised. "That would never happen. Not unless you came with me. I promise." Piper held his hand. She managed a smile, but she was thinking. Another promise. An oath to keep with a final breath. She tried to put those thoughts out of her mind. She knew she should just enjoy this quiet moment with Jason. But as she looked over the side of the ship, she couldn't help remembering how much the prairie at night looked like dark water. Like the drowning room she'd seen in the blade of her knife. Oh man. Oh guys, that one nearly had me shedding a tear. Gosh. I do like how in this series, you know, the follow-up to the Percy Jackson series, I think Rick did a good job in the Percy Jackson series with this, but I think he improved in this series. With these quiet moments. These moments before something that is being built up to. Or
the quiet moments that happen after something big, right? This Eidolon scare. We had that moment, and then straight into just seeing Jason and Piper having a real talk. Gosh, I really do love that, honestly. Something that I was remarking with my buddy Coleman, we're playing through Berseria, Tales of Berseria, and yeah, I just felt that there are these like in between cutscenes that are just done with almost like comic book-esque showings of like facial expressions, but within it just shows like a bunch of kind of unnecessary moments, but in my mind they're still necessary, so that we get a view into the the mundane, the things that make them human, the things that make these characters human. Yeah, some good stuff. Gosh. Also, Sammy, I wanted to say I know it is a sleep stream, but I'm also trying to practice my storytelling here. And if I think that a moment needs some unsettling music, I'm sorry. But I'm gonna do it. Right on. I'm glad I found the right song for it though. The first one was not it, and I thank you guys for giving me the moment to look and search for the right one. Yeah, it is a little funny, especially last stream when the two demigods were duking it out. I played like some real intense music during that part. Heck, I mean, Sammy, I think you were there. Do be yeah, no Christmas music this time around, but keep your ears peeled for it. I feel like one of these times I'm gonna pull it up just as a little prank, a little callback. The funny thing is, I think only like Sammy, only you and the 3 other people that were there would get it. But hey, it would still be worth it. Heck yeah. I did clip that moment though. I don't clip things too often from my streams, but I felt like that one was pretty worthwhile. Oh man, I'm glad I did. That way I'll be able to go back to it. Check it out every now and then. Well, alright guys, it's not quite to the hour mark, but we're about 50 minutes into the stream, so I'm gonna go ahead, take a little break ski, get some water, gonna take a waz or something. And yeah, I encourage you guys to do the same. We've been sitting here for a while, enjoying a nice bedtime story, but if you're planning on staying up, a little bit late, then I highly recommend that, every hour, stand up, stretch, move around a bit, and yeah, give your body what it wants, just to move. We can do as much schmooving and grooving in our chairs as we want to, but it's good for us to get up every now and then. So I'm gonna go do that now, and hope you guys do the same. Schmoovin'. Dude. Gotta schmoove every now and then. Also, I'm hoping, is the volume on the mic good? I think it's a little bit lower than usual, but I wanted to make sure that it doesn't clip. It seems as though it's at least picking up, all my voice and stuff. I think my main worry was for like this voice where it's just a whisper. Heck yeah. Thanks, Emmy. I appreciate you letting me know. Alright. Break time. Be back in about 10 minutes, guys. For chapter 13. Hope to catch you there. Hey, and welcome back. I went and I took a whiz and I stretched a little bit, and now I'm ready for this here next chapter. Hey, thank you. Alright guys, this next chapter is Percy's perspective. Don't know if we've gotten that yet in this book. Yeah, nah, it's been Annabeth, Leo, and Piper, I believe. So, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy this bedtime story. This is The Mark of Athena by Rick Riordan. Chapter 13, Percy. Forget the chicken nugget smokescreen. Percy wanted Leo to invent an anti-dream hat. That night, he had horrible nightmares. First, he dreamt he was back in Alaska on the quest for the Legion's eagle. He was hiking along a mountain road, but as soon as he stepped off the shoulder, he was swallowed by the bog. Muskeg, Hazel had called it. He found himself choking in the mud, unable to move or see or breathe. For the first time in his life, he understood what it was like to drown. It's just a dream, he told himself. I'll wake up. But that didn't make it any less terrifying. Percy had never been scared of water. It was his father's element. But since the Muskeg experience, he developed a fear of suffocation. He could never admit this to anyone, but it had even made him nervous about going in the water. He knew that was silly. He couldn't drown. But he also suspected that if he didn't control the fear, it might start controlling him. He thought about his friend, Thalia, who was scared of heights, even though she was the daughter of the sky god. Her brother Jason could fly by summoning the winds. Thalia couldn't. Maybe because she was too afraid to try. If Percy started to believe he could drown, well, the muskeg pressed against his chest. His lungs wanted to burst. Stop panicking, he told himself. This isn't real. Just when he couldn't hold his breath any longer, the dream changed. He stood in a vast, gloomy space, like an underground parking garage. Rows of stone pillars marched off in every direction, holding up the ceiling about 20 feet above. Freestanding braziers cast a dim red glow over the floor. Percy couldn't see very far in the shadows, but hanging from the ceiling were pulley systems, sandbags, and rows of dark theater lights. Piled around the chamber, wooden crates were labeled props, weapons, and costumes. One read, assorted rocket launchers. Percy heard machinery creaking in the darkness, huge gears turning, and water rushing through pipes. Then he saw the giant. Or at least Percy guessed he was a giant. He was about 12 feet tall, a respectable height for a cyclops, but only half as tall as other giants. The other giants Percy had dealt with. He also looked more human than a typical giant,
without the dragon-like legs of his larger kin. Nevertheless, his long purple hair was braided in a ponytail of dreadlocks, woven with gold and silver coins. Sorry, the garage door is opening. Give it a sec. All right. Nevertheless, his long purple hair was braided in a ponytail of dreadlocks, woven with gold and silver coins, which struck Percy as a giantish hairstyle. He had a 10-foot spear strapped to his back, a giantish weapon. He wore the large black turtleneck Percy had ever seen. He wore the largest black turtleneck Percy had ever seen. Black pants and black leather shoes, with points so long and curly they might have been jester slippers. He paced back and forth in front of a raised platform, examining a bronze jar about the size of Percy.
No, no, no,
the giant muttered to himself.
Where's the splash? Where's the value?
Oh, hang on.
No, no, no,
the giant muttered to himself.
Where's the splash? Where's the value?
He yelled into the darkness.
Otis!
Percy heard something shuffling in the distance. Another giant appeared out of the gloom. He wore exactly the same black outfit, right down to the curly shoes. The only difference between the two giants was that the second one's hair was green rather than purple. The first giant cursed.
Otis! Why do you do this to me every day? I told you I was wearing the black turtleneck today. You could wear anything but the black turtleneck.
Otis blinked as if he'd just woken up.
I thought you were wearing the yellow toga today. That was yesterday. When you showed up in the yellow toga.
Oh, right. Sorry, Effie. His brother snarled. They had to be twins, because their faces were identically ugly.
And don't call me Effie,
Effie demanded.
Call me Ephialtes. That's my name. Or you can use my stage name, the Big F.
Otis grimaced.
I'm still not sure about the stage name. Nonsense! It's perfect! Now, how are the preparations coming along?
Fine. Otis didn't sound very enthusiastic.
The man-eating tigers, the spinning blades. But I still think a few ballerinas would be nice. No ballerinas!
Ephialtes snapped.
And this thing.
He waved at the bronze jar in disgust.
What does it do? It's not exciting. But that's the whole point of the show. He dies unless the others rescue him. And if they arrive on schedule... Oh, they'd better,
Ephialtes said.
July 1st. The calends of June, sacred to Juno. That's when Mother wants to destroy those stupid and really... Oh, those stupid demigods, and really rub it in Juno's face. Besides, I'm not praying overtime for those gladiator ghosts.
Well, then they all die, Otis said, and we start the destruction of Rome. Just like Mother wants. It'll be perfect. The crowd will love it. Roman ghosts adore this sort of thing.
Ephialtes looked unconvinced.
But the jar just stands there. Couldn't we suspend it above a fire? Or dissolve it in a pool of acid or something?
We need him alive for a few days,
Otis reminded his brother.
Otherwise, the Seven won't take the bait and rush to save him.
I suppose. I'd still like a little more screaming. This slow death is boring. Ah, well. What about our talented friend? Is she ready to receive her visitor?
Otis made a sour face.
I really don't like talking to her. She makes me nervous.
But is she ready?
Yes,
Otis said reluctantly.
she's been made ready for centuries. No one will be removing that statue.
Excellent.
Ephialtes rubbed his hands together in anticipation.
This is our big chance, my brother.
That's what you said about our last stunt,
Otis mumbled.
I was hanging in that block of ice suspended over the River Leth for 6 months, and we didn't even get any media attention.
This is different.
Ephialtes insisted.
We will set a new standard for entertainment. If Mother is pleased, we can write our own ticket to fame and fortune.
If you say so.
Otis sighed.
Though I still think those ballerina costumes from Swan Lake would look lovely and...
No ballet!
Sorry.
Come,
Ephialtes said.
let's examine the tigers. I want to be sure they are hungry.
The giants lumbered off into the gloom, and Percy turned toward the jar. I need to see inside, he thought. He willed his dream forward, right to the surface of the jar. Then he passed through. The air in the jar smelled of stale breath and tarnished metal. The only light came from the dim purple glow of a dark sword. Its Stygian iron blade set against one side of the container. Huddled next to it was a dejected-looking boy in tattered jeans, a black shirt, and an old aviator jacket. On his right hand, a silver skull ring glittered. Nico, Percy called, but the son of Hades could not hear him. The container was completely sealed. The air was turning poisonous. Nico's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. He appeared to be meditating. His face was pale and thinner than Percy remembered. On the inner wall of the jar, it looked as though Nico had scratched 3 hash marks with his sword. Maybe it had been 3 days that he'd been imprisoned. It didn't seem possible he could have survived so long without suffocating.
Even in a dream, Percy was already starting to feel panicky, struggling to get enough oxygen. Then he noticed something between Nico's feet. A small collection of glistening objects, no bigger than baby teeth. Seeds, Percy realized. Pomegranate seeds. 3 had been eaten and spit out. 5 were still encased in dark red pulp. "Nico," Percy said, "where is this place? We'll save you." The image faded, and a girl's voice whispered, "Percy? Percy?" At first, Percy thought he was still asleep. When he'd lost his memory, he'd spent weeks dreaming about Annabeth, the only person he remembered from his past. As his eyes opened and his vision cleared, he realized she was really there. She was standing by his berth, smiling down at him. Her blonde hair fell across her shoulders. Her storm gray eyes were bright with amusement. He remembered his first day at Camp Half-Blood 5 years ago, when he'd woken from a daze and found Annabeth standing over him. She had said, "You drool when you sleep." She was sentimental that way. "What's going on?" he asked. "Are we there?" "No," she said, her voice low. "It's the middle of the night." "You mean..." Percy's heart started to race. He realized he was in his pajamas, in bed. He probably had been drooling, or at least making weird noises as he dreamed. No doubt he had a severe case of pillow hair, and his breath didn't smell great. "You sneaked into my cabin? You snuck into my cabin?" Annabeth rolled her eyes. "Percy, you'll be 17 in 2 months. You can't seriously be worried about getting in trouble with Coach Hedge." Have you seen his baseball bat? "Besides, seaweed brain, I just thought we could take a walk. We haven't had any time to be together alone. I want to show you something. My favorite place aboard the ship." Percy's pulse was still in overdrive, but it wasn't from fear of getting into trouble. "Can I, brush my teeth first?" "You better," Annabeth said, "because I'm not kissing you until you do. And brush your hair while you're at it." For a trireme, the ship was huge, but it still felt cozy to Percy, like his dorm building back at Yancey Academy, or any of the boarding schools he'd gotten kicked out of. Annabeth and he crept downstairs to the second deck, which Percy hadn't explored except for the sickbay. She led him past the engine room, which looked like a very dangerous, mechanized jungle gym, with pipes and pistons and tubes jutting from a central bronze sphere. Cables resembled giant metal noodles, snaking across the floor and running up the walls. "How does that thing even work?" Percy asked. "No idea," Annabeth said. "And I'm the only one besides Leo who can operate it." "That's reassuring." "It should be fine. It's only threatened to blow up once." "You're kidding." "I hope." She smiled. "Come on." They worked their way past the supply rooms and the armory. Toward the stern of the ship, they reached a set of wooden double doors that opened into a large stable. The room smelt of fresh hay and wool blankets. Lining the left wall were 3 empty horse stalls, like the ones they used for Pegasi back at camp. The right wall had 2 empty cages, big enough for large zoo animals. In the center of the floor was a 20-foot square, see-through panel. Far below, the night landscape whisked by. Miles of dark countryside crisscrossed with illuminated highways like the strands of a web.
"A glass-bottomed boat?" Percy asked.
Annabeth grabbed a blanket from the nearest stable gate and spread it across part of the glass floor. "Sit with me." They relaxed on the blanket, as if they were having a picnic, and watched as the world went by below. Leo built the stable so Pegasi could come and go easily, Annabeth said. Only he didn't realize that Pegasi prefer to roam free, so the stables are always empty. Percy wondered where Blackjack was, roaming the skies somewhere, hopefully following their progress. Percy's head still throbbed from getting whopped by Blackjack's hoof, but he didn't hold that against the horse.
"What do you mean, come and go easily?" he asked. Wouldn't a Pegasus have to make it... Wouldn't a Pegasus have to make it down 2 flights of stairs? Annabeth tapped her knuckles on the glass.
These are bay doors, like on a bomber.
Percy gulped. "You mean we're sitting on doors? What if they opened?"
I suppose we'd fall to our deaths, but they won't open. Most likely.
"Great." Annabeth laughed.
You know why I like it here? It's not just the view. What does this place remind you of?
Percy looked around. The cages and stables, the celestial bronze lamp hanging from the beam, the smell of hay, and of course, Annabeth sitting close to him, her face ghostly and beautiful in the soft amber light. The zoo truck, Percy decided. The one we took to Los Angeles. Or the one we took to Las Vegas. Her smile told him he'd gotten the answer right. "That was so long ago," Percy said. "We were in bad shape, struggling to get across the country to find that stupid lightning bolt, trapped in a truck with a bunch of mistreated animals. How can you be nostalgic for that?"
Because, seaweed brain, it's the first time we really talked, you and me. I told you about my family, and...
She took out her camp necklace, strung with her dad's collage. Strung with her dad's college ring, and a colorful clay bead for each year of camp. At Camp Half-Blood. Now there was something else on the leather cord. A red coral pendant Percy had given her when they had started dating. He'd brought it from his father's palace at the bottom of the sea.
And
Annabeth continued,
it reminds me how long we've known each other. We were 12, Percy. Can you believe that?
"No," he admitted. "So, you knew you liked me from that moment?" She smirked. I hated you at first. You annoy me. You annoyed me. Then I tolerated you for a few years. Then... Okay, fine. Okay, fine. She leant over and kissed him. A good, proper kiss. Without anyone watching. No Romans anywhere. No screaming satyr chaperones. She pulled away. I missed you, Percy. Percy wanted to tell her the same thing, but it seemed too small a comment. While he had been on the Roman side, he kept himself alive, almost solely by thinking of Annabeth. I missed you didn't really cover that. He remembered earlier in the night, when Piper had forced the Eidolons to leave his mind. Percy hadn't been aware of its presence until she had used her charm speak. After the Eidolon was gone, he felt as if a hot spike had been removed from his forehead. He hadn't realized how much pain he had been in until the spirit left. Then his thoughts became clearer. His soul settled comfortably back into his body. Sitting there with Annabeth made him feel the same way. The past few months could have been one of his strange dreams. The events at Camp Jupiter seemed a fuzzy and unreal haze, much like that fight with Jason, when they had both been controlled by the Eidolons. Yet, he didn't regret the time he'd spent at Camp Jupiter. It had opened his eyes in a lot of ways. Annabeth, he said hesitantly, in New Rome, demigods can live their whole lives in peace. Her expression turned guarded. Reyna explained it to me. But, Percy, you belong at Camp Half-Blood. That other life... I know, Percy said. But while I was there, I saw so many demigods living without fear. Kids going to college, couples getting married and raising families. There's nothing like that at Camp Half-Blood. I kept thinking about you and me. And maybe someday when this war with the giants is over. It was hard to tell in the golden light, but he thought Annabeth was blushing. Oh, she said. Percy was afraid he'd said too much. Maybe he'd scared her with his big dreams of the future. She was usually the one with the plans. Percy cursed himself silently. As long as he'd known Annabeth, he still felt like he understood so little about her. Even after they'd been dating several months, their relationship had always felt new and delicate, like a glass sculpture. He was terrified of doing something wrong and breaking it. I'm sorry, he said. I just, I had to think of that to keep going. To give me hope. Forget I mentioned... No, she said. No, Percy. Gods, that's so sweet. It's just... We may have burned that bridge. If we can't repair things with the Romans, well, the two sets of demigods have never gotten along. That's why the gods kept us separate. I don't know if we could ever belong there. Percy didn't want to argue, but he couldn't let go of the hope. It felt important.
Not just for Annabeth and him, but for all the other demigods. It had to be possible to belong in two different worlds at once. After all, that's what being a demigod was all about. Not quite belonging to the mortal world or on Mount Olympus, but trying to make peace with both sides of their nature. Unfortunately, that got him thinking about the gods, the war they were facing, and his dream about the twins, Ephialtes and Otis. I was having a nightmare when you woke me up, he admitted. He told Annabeth what he'd seen. Even the most terrible parts didn't seem to surprise her. She shook her head sadly when he described Nico's imprisonment in the bronze jar. She got an angry glint in her eyes when he told her about the giants planning some sort of Rome-destroying extravaganza that would include their painful deaths as an opening event.
Nico is the bait, she murmured. Gaia's forces must have been captured, or Gaia's forces must have captured him somehow. But we don't know exactly where they're holding him.
Somewhere in Rome, Percy said. Somewhere underground. They made it sound like Nico still had a few days to live, but I don't see how he could hold out so long with no oxygen.
5 more days, according to Nemesis, Annabeth said. The calends of June, or the calends of July. At least the deadline makes sense now.
What's a calends? Annabeth smirked, like she was pleased they were back in their old familiar pattern. Percy being ignorant, she herself explaining stuff.
It's just the Roman term for the first of the month. That's where we get the word calendar. But how can Nico survive that long? We should talk to Hazel.
Now? She hesitated.
No. It can wait until morning. I don't want to hit her with this news in the middle of the night.
The giants mentioned a statue, Percy recalled, and something about a talented friend who was guarding it. Whoever this friend was, she scared Otis. Anyone who can scare a giant... Annabeth gazed down at the highway snaking through the dark hills.
Percy, have you seen Poseidon lately? Or had any kind of sign from him?
He shook his head. Not since... Wow. I guess I haven't thought about that. Not since the end of the Titan War. I saw him at Camp Half-Blood, but that was last August. A sense of dread settled over him. Why? Have you seen Athena? She didn't meet his eyes.
A few weeks ago,
she admitted.
It wasn't good.
She didn't seem like herself. Maybe it's the... Oh.
She didn't seem like herself. Maybe it's the Greek, Roman schizophrenia that Nemesis described. I'm not sure. She said some hurtful things. She said I had failed her.
Failed her? Percy wasn't sure he'd heard her right. Annabeth was the perfect demigod child. She was everything a daughter of Athena should be. How could you ever?
I don't know, she said miserably. On top of that, I've been having nightmares of my own. They don't make as much sense as yours.
Percy waited, but Annabeth didn't share any more details. He wanted to make her feel better, and tell her it would be okay. But he knew he couldn't. He wanted to fix everything for the both of them, so they could have a happy ending. After all these years, even the cruelest gods would have to admit they deserved it. But he had a gut feeling that there was nothing he could do to help Annabeth this time, other than simply be there. Wisdom's daughter walks alone. He felt as trapped and helpless as when he'd sunk into the muskeg. Annabeth managed a faint smile.
Some romantic evening, huh? No more bad things until the morning.
She kissed him again.
We'll figure everything out. I've got your back. For now, that's all that matters. I've got you back. For now, that's all that matters.
Right, Percy said. No more talk about Gaia rising, Nico being held hostage, the world ending, the giants.
Shut up, Seaweed Brain, she ordered. Just hold me for a while.
They sat together, cuddling, enjoying each other's warmth. Before Percy knew it, the drone of the ship engine, the dim light, and the comfortable feeling of being with Annabeth made his eyes heavy, and he drifted off to sleep. When he woke, daylight was coming through the glass floor, and a boy's voice said,
Oh, you are in so much trouble!
I have a feeling that's probably Leo. The rascal.
Ooh, you are in so much trouble. Classic line. Oh man, a little romantic scene with the favorite couple. I'm biased. I am biased, granted, but I love those two, man. It's one of those things where I've had, I've been with the series for, since I was 12. So that moment when Annabeth said, how long have we known each other? Since we were 12. It really got me thinking, like, how long have I known this series? Since I was 12. Gosh, that's so good. And I remember I stopped, I believe, at this book. A lot of this I don't remember too much. And I'm uncertain if I actually finished it back in the day when I was reading through the series. But there is a fourth, I believe, in this series. So come next book, it'll be completely new to me. This one may be as well, but I'll have to see if things come back to me. And I hope you guys join me on that journey. Good stuff. Well, hey, those Otis and what was it? Effie, Effie voices kind of tore up my voice. So I hope that last bit was still good. I tried my best to do it justice, but I could feel my voice waning. There's 5 in the Heroes of Olympus. Heck yeah. I think it's House of Hades and then Blood of Olympus. Whew. Alright. Good stuff. We got plenty more content to go. And as I said, come House of Hades, I believe that'll be entirely new to me. Guys, this was a good change of pace from yesterday. Yesterday had some intense moments, But this one, these 2 chapters, just some real talks between the lovey-doveys, you know, the lovebirds. You started playing Hades? Yes. Yes, dude. I adore that game. I mean, you guys know how much I love Percy Jackson and Greek mythology and junk. That game was right up my alley. Golly. Well, alright guys. I'm gonna pause that jam and toss in. Oh dude, I love roguelikes. Enter the Gungeon was one that I played so much. And then I've been playing a bunch of Binding of Isaac. Finally got into that one because I discovered I liked the genre, and that one is, one of the quintessential ones. Slay the Spire is my favorite roguelike of all time, man. I play that one all the time. But shoot, sorry, outro time. Much love, guys. Remember, as always, take the merriment that we found together tonight. Let it set you at ease as you lay your head on your pillow. And let it carry you into tomorrow. Remember to love yourself well, and let that love spread to others. Alright guys, I hope you'll join me tomorrow for the next 2 chapters. Until then, stay merry. Love you guys bunches, and I'll be seeing you.